was going to be in the architectural review board resolution.
I believe we had the resolution for the subdivision that it would be discussed, but it wasn't necessarily going to be, it wasn't going to be part of the ARB resolution as opposed to just be discussed when they were in front of the ARB. So we can, I mean, if you want to incorporate it into the resolution, we can do that. If Kathy would you.
Kind of recalling the way Donna,
Yeah.
that you would do it, you put it over to the ARB.
Right.
Approve the plan as part of the ARB.
So you want to include it as part of the ARB, yes.
And I think it makes sense because I think the issue that came up was not so much the hydrology of it, but the plants that were selected, which kind of became part of the landscaping plan for the project. So I think that was the issue you were raising, Donna.
Well, I was also really concerned. It seemed to me that it was really undersized for the size of the house and the driveway, which are really large, and it was a very small thing. So I was concerned about the size being adequate. And now seeing the landscape ecologist notes, that seems to be an issue. So the whole thing is an issue.
Well, I think there's two separate issues. One is the planting,
Right.
and one is the hydrology. Maybe we just need to drill into a couple of issues here. Well, I don't know if you guys want to take care of the ARB stuff first, and then maybe we could deal with the rain garden and incorporate that into the resolution.
Right. I mean, I think, because to some extent we were going to take care of it in I know the resolution said we were going to discuss it further at the ARB. At this point in time, I think there needs to be there probably ultimately will be a revision to the site plan itself. So I don't really know if that's ARB at this point.
So are you saying to amend the subdivision?
You might end up having to amend the subdivision depending on what we decide tonight in terms of that main garden.
Well, again, the subdivision, I think, stands on its own, in my opinion, that what we're really doing now is placing a home on the lot that was created, although a lot of how that lot was going to be developed was known to us at the time of the subdivision. So, if this applicant came in 10 years from now, we'd probably be dealing with all these issues on the site plan and wouldn't be revisiting the subdivision. So I think the only reason we kicked it to this level was because of the issues that came up about the selected plantings and so forth. And as far as the function of the rain garden, to my review, those issues have been addressed and would have been shaken out in further comments that I had with the site engineer. So if we want to get into the rain garden now, well,
as everybody knows, there's no actual site plan approval for single family homes.
Right.
So we could either deal with it at the subdivision stage, which has already been issued a resolution, or this stage, or the building permit stage. So it has to be dealt with at one of the stages. And I think.
Well, I think
now is the best time.
Our de facto practice has really been the ARB.
Right.
Kind of turns into a
Right,
site plan
exactly.
review, really. So continuing.
So I think we need to discuss it and come to some resolutions that we can make conditions of this approval.
Okay.
Well, I'm kind of looking at it the way Dan is. The rain garden functionally, as far as we were looking at it, is a feature to handle the actual stormwater. And you're telling us that the size is adequate. And then beyond that, the drawings are showing vegetation there. So we just want to make sure, however we proceed from here, that it's going to be vegetation that's going to survive. Otherwise, it's going to look like a sand trap on a golf course.
Right. So I think Dan was saying that he's gonna do the calculations when they come forward, usually during building permit process, correct?
I mean, we really received all the, I had actually asked the engineer to just do one more storm event to amplify on what he said. Most notably, and, you know, if you want, maybe what I should do is just do a quick deep dive into how we deal with stormwater. Maybe that's
As long as procedurally we get
to the
we get a functioning system for the stormwater, and we get vegetation that's not it's gonna thrive in that location under those circumstances.
Well, let me kind of come out and drill back into how we get to where we are, and then procedurally, I think, you know, we can incorporate this if the board feels we just incorporate it into the resolution. I mean, a lot of, you know, even subdivision resolutions, usually on stormwater, we usually put a paragraph in there about the final review by the consulting county review. So, you know, in this case, because this applicant, what this applicant could have done really is put in underground infiltrators.
Yes.
And avoided all this.
True.
So you know, the notion was that this was a preferable practice with the DEC refers to as green infrastructure practices. So sort of, you know, you know, it's almost like those engineered systems, or the, you know, the evil systems. Now we have some, you know, green things like green roofs, like cisterns. There's a lot of these classification practices that are appropriate, especially for small projects like a single-family home, which the rain garden is an appropriate practice. So when we're dealing with bigger projects, there's we're working within the framework of the New York State General Permit, and to get coverage under that, you have to file a notice of intent, but the project has to exceed 5 acres. So we're not there. So what happens is the DEC, the town is what's referred to as an MS4. But the town has certain obligations and operates under another permit that they're going to handle the stuff that we're going to differentiate the stuff that has to be kicked to the DEC and requires coverage under the general permit, as opposed to things that don't require that step, that fall under the threshold and are things that fall under our local review. Generally speaking, on something of this size, the applicant's really only obliged to do erosion control. As practice, you know, a SWIP can simply be an erosion control plan. In practice, what we've done is ask the applicants to go with permanent practices to address the impacts. So taking it, the most important thing we tried to do, with the stormwater regs, there's two important criteria. One is that you capture and treat what's called the water quality volume. And what that is, the DEC basically came and said, we want storms with a recurrence, with what they call the 90th percentile storm, meaning that 90% of the storm events will be 1.4, 1.5 inches, but will be that amount or less. So that most of the time, your practice will be able to actually treat that. And separate and apart from that is attenuating the storms so that you don't have damage to the conveyances or flooding. And those are the 1 year, 10 year, and 100-year storms we look at. So the applicant has modeled all of those storms and demonstrated that from the hydrology point of view, that those storms are all attenuated. Separate and apart from that, the water quality volume between what's in the volume of the practice itself, which is, there's going to be media in there that the planting is going to be in. But the particular design they use is also crushed stone below it. So the crushed stone also works to store, so that between the crushed stone and the volume above the volume above the media that the planting's in to where it overflows meets that criteria of the water quality volume. So from the straight hydrology point of view, the applicant has fulfilled the requirements of our local law, which basically is derived from the state law, which pushes us to use the New York State Stormwater Design Manual. So the applicant's engineer has done that. So, from that perspective, I think there's other issues in terms of the planting, and they did use a generic detail to show what the rain garden is going to look like in terms of the profile of what it's made of. So it seems like that's perhaps the issue we want to drill into. I think that they should update that detail to be specific to the project. And separate apart from that, to work on selecting the plantings that go in there that are appropriate. So hopefully I didn't go on for too long, but just kind of wanted to frame it all for you. So that's where we are. And from my perspective, other than a couple of tweaks, I'm satisfied with the hydrology.
Can I ask a question? So reading the landscape ecologist comments, it seemed like the rain garden is too deep for most plants to be able to survive well.
Well,
like they're getting the volume by making a very deep rain garden.
Well, what's not obvious in the plan, but it's in the model that they use. And take a look at that. I'll tell you exactly. So the grading plan. In a second. So the grading plan, a 3/8. I'm sorry. Well, the grading plan for this detailed one of the rain garden has the lowest contour is 384. Now the overflow, and it goes a little bit below that, but the overflow is only at I want to say 384.25, I think. Because all these parameters have to be plugged into the model to work properly. So the primary outlet's 384.25. Right, so that's really it's really just 3 inches above the overflow. Now he doesn't show, and that's what he should show, is the media that the plantings are going to go into. Then in theory you want to have about 6 inches or thereabouts, so that and usually it's irregular too, but by putting a spot elevation on what the planting media is, you get there. The numbers in the model also reflect that there's under the media, there's also a foot of stone, and that's there to store water and let it percolate into the ground. So that's also part, that also factors into the water quality volume storage. So it's not all, right at the, just above the media. There's a whole other system going there. And the generic detail they use also showed an outlet, which when I spoke to the engineer, he basically said that was the generic detail. He's going to take that out. So that's.
Yeah, so my concern is how.
Right, so he can
water?
put the spot elevation in there, but it's going to be probably 6 to 9 inches from the media to the overflow.
Right, so that's pretty deep. So that would.
But remember, it's not going to have standing water all the time.
Yeah, it's just I met with someone at the village because they got a grant for rain garden.
I believe the DEC recommendation is about 6 inches.
You're saying it's 9, right?
I'm saying it doesn't say. he needs to put, that if you put it 6 inches below this overflow, then you're there. So by placing that spot elevation in this detailed drawing, that would explain.
Yeah, so my concern is that it's what plants are gonna survive in that, and I don't know that, you know, hydrology and plants is two different things, like who's going to be, if we sign off on this, who is gonna be approving?
Well, the DEC actually does have their own recommendations as to what goes there. And the gentleman from Valer's firm, whether he had any suggestions or not. Or,
Well, he asked for more information than the engineer said.
well, this was what I had gotten.
You know, he received that, and then that was the questions that he said in order to be able to make a determination of the planting, we needed to know more about the hydrology,
Oh, okay.
you know, and the soils. Stuff like that.
Well, was the list on this drawing acceptable to him?
I mean, if the plants themselves, that was where there was more questions as to, on the design of this storm, the rain garden before plants could be finalized.
All right. Well, I mean, I think the issue is probably I'm understanding what he's talking about. I mean, it's the 6 inch. If you guys want to go through that memo, or?
No, I mean, I think the bottom line is, I think we just need, the board needs to make a decision whether, if, I mean, if maybe there's other options instead of the rain garden, right? And we can just tell the applicant they need to install it. Opposed to the rain garden.
I think it's either that or give all the information to rain garden and the plants so that we know what we're approving.
Right, I mean, right, that could be, right,
Or
but,
not do the rain garden, right?
right.
If you want to make a condition that I put the infiltrators in, I don't have a problem with it. I've installed dozens and dozens of them, and never had a problem, so. If you want to make a condition that I do that, I'll have Ralph do the calculations and we'll call it a day.
That would be the easiest.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I thought the board would prefer this, but
I
I think we're making it very complicated on the applicant.
I have trouble telling the applicant to change it because it's a conforming system. It's just the only thing that's kind of a gray area is, you know, you're representing plants in that area. We just need to know what that is. That's it.
I mean,
I'm willing to move forward with the resolution. It's just the vegetation making sense.
I mean, what Dan just mentioned is we took a planting that comes down for the state for this area, and those are the plants that we're using there, that they're already recommended for this area, for that application. But you know.
Yeah, that's the.
As long as it's dictated in the material and it makes sense,
Right from New York State, DEC.
then that's what we need to talk about.
I mean, you've got like, there's it's trees, but there's no, any indication of what's gonna be on the ground. You know, it's a rain garden, is there gonna be like vegetation there, is it?
Well, there's a planting schedule.
We're gonna think,
Yes,
I
it's all
think
big,
rain gardens are
big
more,
trees.
right, rain gardens are more complicated in terms
Right.
of if you want to make a habitat or ecological habitat associated. I think that's the real issue, right? There's a stormwater perspective, hydrology perspective, and then
Right.
there's also the actual vegetation.
Right, like, I don't know how that's going to like over time work.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting anything between the plants.
Well, then it's either gonna be right lines or, I mean, you can't have their soil. There will be weeds.
I have no doubt, and I've got proof of it on my
So-
property.
Right, any bare soil is an invitation for stuff you don't want, so, or a lot of work, like just weeding the damn thing, like how do you take care of this? So this doesn't make any sense. So, and part of the hydrology is that this, pardon me if I'm wrong, but the idea that the plants are gonna be absorbing the water, no,
No, so,
so,
yeah, like I say, I mean, it's a green infrastructure practice, you know, ecologically, these are sort of preferred by the DEC, but, you know, if the board is gonna make rain gardens, you know, we come up with a detail maybe for future applicants, but,
I think you just keep it, definitely have it, if you're gonna have plants, you have to have it designed by somebody that's gonna function. You've got tall things and short things all like merged together, I don't think that's gonna work.
So for the record, just so it's clear, if the plants fail, that doesn't impact the stormwater function, the hydrology.
No.
So it's just a matter of what it's gonna look like if the plants fail.
I mean, the truth is, when we put in infiltrators, we don't have stormwater police going around to make sure the infiltrators are working right. This is something in somebody's front yard that starts to look shabby. They've got, you know, they're not gonna wanna look at a shabby feature in their front yard. They'll tend to. But,
Could we make that a requirement? Plants have to survive, we've done that before for a certain period of time.
Well, I mean, we were gonna make that a requirement, I mean, potentially for the typical 3-year requirement.
Could we extend it for 5 years? Make it 5 years?
Yeah, and I mean, he's right. I mean, I think the biggest issue is then becomes enforcement. You know, I mean, we can do that, but it's a larger area. I mean, I think it's what, 600 square feet.
I mean, unless I'm wrong, it's conforming in every way. It's just a matter of
Right.
will the homeowner do the right thing? That can't be where we hit a sticking point. We have every project stuck.
Right.
Now
So if
it's-
there's no plants, is it going, because I mean, all of my gutters go into gardens, so I guess they're considered rain gardens, but they're not engineered this way, so I'm not familiar with this engineering. So let's say the plants all fail, and you're saying that it's still gonna work, the hydrology is still gonna work, but, without plants, is it gonna, like, fill
I
up?
mean, you know, like on a single family home, I mean, we do like the bigger detention basins, which really are not attractive features. Right. They have water sitting in them, they can be overgrown if they're not maintained. I think the thinking was to try and have something on small things like single family homes, something that could be attractive and, you know, just become a landscaping feature. It was really the intent. So, you know, and I think that was the thinking in having this thing appear before the board as the ARB, because it's a you know, it functions for stormwater, but it also doubles as a landscaping feature. So, you know, we did have a
But
board.
the landscaping feature doesn't affect the stormwater feature.
Right.
Right.
I gotta tell you, where it's situated on the property, it's not gonna be very visible at all. You would have to walk all the way to the end of the property and it won't even be visible, you know, so. I don't have a problem putting the infiltrators in, it's a walk in the park and I've done the neighbors behind me, to the left of me, no one. And there was a big concern to the neighbors that were below us on Hawks Avenue. And no problems whatsoever. They work beautifully. And we've had some tremendous storms in the past few years, and no one's ever complained that they've had water running down.
I mean, if you decide to change it and go that route, that's one thing. I just don't think it's our place to mandate a change that's compliant and works. That's all.
All right. I mean, if you want to make something contingent, you know, for the building, pull the building permit, or at the final, you know, for the CO, you know, at least we'll have months to choose or whatever. I don't have a problem either way.
So what do you think about that? My main
Contingent
concern
upon-
is that it doesn't function.
Yes.
So if living plants are not contingent upon it functioning, I feel better about it.
And the plant life is DEC specified in the same category.
And if it gets overgrown, will it still function?
Yeah, it should. I mean, it's just, maybe, again,
The other way.
I mean,
rather than the other.
the other issue is like with infiltrators, if they take on silt from erosion and so forth, most homeowners don't know that. If this thing starts to fill up, it's conspicuous. That, you know, you can have your landscaper go in and clean, because you'll have pipes going in there that the landscaper periodically can go clean any debris, because you're gonna get leaves coming in from the downspouts, and you're also gonna have, you've got a yard drain by the driveway, so debris can wash into that. So, you know, after a few years where the pipes terminate when they enter the rain garden, there may be some housekeeping that needs to be done there, but it would be conspicuous to the owner that something needs to be done, as opposed to an infiltrator, which is buried. I don't know many homeowners that religiously go out and see if their infiltrators filled up.
I mean, like every other project, this is going to require some maintenance, and that's the expectation that we move forward on. As far as I'm concerned, it complies. So if the rest of the board is in agreement, I'll take that.
Add subject to final review. The town engineer set about plans not being a certain number of inches, right? You don't want it to go down. So then
Right, we did the drawing there, the blow up of the rain garden, that needs to be tweaked based upon our conversation this evening. And the detail that appears on the plan is a generic one, that he needs to refine it. In the HydroCAD model, which they use for the hydrology, they could really add the actual elevations to that section of the rain garden, so it's specific to this project and not a generic one.
So what are we having as a condition then, just final approval by the town engineer?
as to the rain garden.
Right, so under landscaping, where I'll make that, make that a number one, landscaping shall be, installed in a healthy, vigorous state, and I think we have the first, second, third year of installation, and then Roman numeral 2 will be, final details and plans of the rain garden, need to be signed off by the town engineer. Before the building permits issue.
Yes.
And if I could make a suggestion, maybe we should do, especially if the village is doing some work on it, that if we have our own generic rain garden detail and selected plantings, because I think it's a practice we probably want to encourage.
Right.
So if we can direct applicants to just say, this is the detail or the type of plantings, and, if you can make this work, then go with this, and avoid this sort of discussion, because I think we really should be encouraging applicants to
That would help the
use
applicants,
these
that
clean
would help us.
practices.
Yeah, you know, that it wasn't Paul, it was another person from the village, an engineer, do you know the other engineer?
Oh, Joe Tremelli?
Maybe it's a tall guy?
Yes.
Yeah, because he seemed to be really knowledgeable. It seems that way. So maybe they will.
I'll make the motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Are we?
Take a vote.
Oh,
Yes.
Yes.
Make it unanimous. And then we need a motion to pass the resolution as with the restrictions as modified.
Make the motion to pass the resolution as modified and discussed during this meeting. Vote yes.
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 So while you were out.
So we're all good. So I mean, the public meeting is now.
Public hearing is closed and the resolution's been passed with the modifications that we discussed.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Just be hero. Heads. Enjoy the bald spot. Yeah. This is a different version. At least I can see all of you up there. Well, for the record, Taylor Palmer with the law firm Cuddy & Bader on behalf of the applicant. Thanks. Let's just take this guy with me. Can everybody hear me at home? I'm not a good singer, so I'll keep it to speeches. Tonight I am joined by our engineering consultant, Andre Lubinoff from Engineering Surveying Properties, and we also have our consultant, Kristen Hydro, Duncan Simpson. He's on the Zoom call, so I don't know if we're able to promote Duncan. I don't think we'll have much to show from Duncan, but he's here in case there are any questions. We are here for a continued public hearing on our wetlands and filling and grading permit applications for the property. This is again just a proposal to remediate. We're not proposing any new improvements. So significant remediation plan associated with the property. These have been updated with the board's wetlands consultant. We've also reviewed the EAC comments. Just in short, we've agreed to move the sand, the existing sand that was removed from this area. We're moving it outside of the wetland buffer. We've removed metal and wood debris from the inlet area, or we're agreeing to remove metal and wood debris from the wetland area around the pond. We are also initiating an algae cleanup investigation, and we're also using a leaf compost in the area. And no other fertilizers to make sure it's full weight. So we did submit a draft monitoring plan. We did provide some information to our wetland consultant. He did agree to the change of our planting schedule, our planting plans. We did put those informations into the board. Now we put those in sort of, I guess, prematurely, only because we sort of anticipated that they would be conditions of approval, and we were sort of, I guess you could call it pre-satisfying conditions of the approval. So we were really just trying to show that we're putting all that material together so you had it, but effectively we've worked to address any of the comments from the board or your consultants making this submission. And if we see fit, we'd certainly turn to the public if there are any questions, but we'd otherwise ask for considering closing the hearing and looking at a resolution this evening.
So we're waiting for final confirmation of, I spoke to Steve Coleman, he received the materials, he's reviewing them. So once we get final confirmation from him, and then I will have a draft, I'll have a resolution for the board's approval at the next meeting. I need to work in the new documents that were received this week for the resolution. And so once we have those things finalized, so we anticipate, I mean, it's up to you if you want to close the public hearing tonight. Or you can, but
Usually we continue it just in case something new has to be put into the record.
right.
I don't think it's detrimental to this project. It's just pick up where we left off.
Right.
Yeah, certainly we're eager to get out there while there's still time to do any of this work this season versus next year. So we're trying to, so any way we can, if the board's understood. It sounds like tonight we're not able to approve a resolution, or
We don't have a resolution, so
No.
we're aiming for what, November 2nd?
Yeah. That's right.
So unless something surprising happens, I would assume we close the public hearing and vote on the resolution at the next meeting.
okay, great. Then no other questions from us. We appreciate your time tonight, and we'll see you on November 2nd. And we might request a draft of that resolution if it's available before the meeting. Great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing on Rose Lodge LLC to November 2nd. I vote yes.
Vote yes.
I vote yes as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we need to do anything regarding terror being adjourned?
No.
I think there's someone here for that public hearing though on Zoom.
For terror?
Yeah,
Oh,
the applicant asked for an adjournment, but it's still a public hearing.
Absolutely.
So let's see if she isn't back here for that.
ready, but then he submitted everything on Monday. So when I talked to Steve, and Steve wants to finish reviewing everything. And
Is Vera here for the public hearing?
And then this
Yeah,
day-
I was. Are they doing anything or are they saying anything for the Terra Rustica?
They asked for us to bump them to the next meeting because they were not prepared.
Oh.
So. Sure.
Okay, when would the next meeting be?
Second, and then November 16th if necessary.
November 16th?
November 2nd. Is the
Oh,
next
November
meeting.
2nd.
And then if it goes to the following meeting, it would be November 16th.
Okay, all right. Okay. Thanks.
Is there anything you'd like to add as far as comments?
Not about that, but I wish that they would still correct the lights in the front, which they haven't done.
We will bring that up.
Okay, it's the light right by the steps. They were supposed to have put in lights low to the ground to where the steps are, and they never did that. And so the lights shine directly still into our house.
Where are you located?
I'm sorry, I'm having a little difficult time hearing. What was that?
Just your location, your address.
My location and my address? 552 North State Road. My house is directly behind the restaurant.
We will pass this information on to the
Okay.
applicant.
Okay. I would appreciate it. They're not very considerate, so thanks, I would appreciate it. Thanks. Bye all.
Sandy, I mean, I'll reach out to John.
Probably good to do in advance of the next meeting.
Yes.
Oh, there's two other people on, and I'm not sure if, is there anyone that would like to speak on this matter that's on the Zoom call?
If you'd like to speak, please raise your digital hand so that we can promote you and allow you to speak.
All right, so should we move on to the miscellaneous items? Draft zoning text amendment.
Yeah, so I can talk a little bit about this. So right now, all artist communities within the town of Boston fall under the category of not-for-profit, profit and
Can't say that word.
yeah, I can't say that word. So anyhow, the point is, there are no specific standards that relate to artist communities. And so, as the town board is concerned, especially we have Bethany Arts Center, they went through a special permit process and they are up for a new special, they are up for a renewal of their special permit. And so one of the thoughts, not necessarily related specifically to Bethany Arts Center, but really just overall with artist communities, because part of the comprehensive plan is to encourage more artist communities, but there's no standards, right? And so the town board decided they wanted to move forward with establishing standards for artist communities. It would still be a special permit process, but basically what this does, the special permit standards do, excuse me, what the special permit standards do is establish minimum acreages, you know, maximum occupancies in terms of who can live on the site, you know, the amount of like public events that take place. So it really does highlight some of the issues and concerns that the zoning board was sort of wrestling with. And instead of having each application, you know, have to create its own standards, it'll be a little bit more uniform for additional arts communities for the future.
So the big difference here though is the living.
Yes.
So that's, because that is not standard with all artist communities.
It's not, however, but a lot, I was gonna say, it's not, but it's surprisingly more common than you think.
Well, I think it's a good thing. I'm
Right.
not saying it's a bad thing, because I just, particularly in Westchester, being an artist, it's incredibly difficult to find housing.
Right.
Just like many other things, so I don't think it's a bad thing. But I do think that is something that should be addressed, so I'm just wondering how 15% came up and what is that? Like, for instance, since this is mainly just related to that, what is the numbers that we're talking about? Like, what is 15% of what?
So I think if this isn't, well, this isn't necessarily direct, I mean, yes, Bethany is our only community, our
Well, just
community
as
right
an
now,
example,
but
yeah, how many people would that mean in theory? Or,
In the local law, it says 15% of housing units, so however
Right.
housing units
so
are
somewhere
defined
how many
under.
housing units?
I don't, yeah,
I don't
on that
think-
property, I'm not sure.
no, I think it's really for the full-time employees, and I think that's where some of the flexibility would be allowed. If that is something of concern, I can, you know, if this board
I was
wants us
just
to raise
curious.
it, then we can bring that back to the board as something for them to consider maybe maxing that.
Well, my other question, which ties into that, because again, I do think it's really good to have this. It's needed to have a living space for artists. And I'm assuming the employees would be artists or appreciators or something.
Right, well, a lot of them will be potentially like caretakers of the properties, because we're, you know, now, currently, there is no minimum lot area, right? So now there will be a minimum lot area of 5 acres.
Right.
So the thought is that there would be certain, you know, requirements potentially in terms of maintenance, in terms of operation, maybe even just management of the facility itself.
So I've been on artists, in artist communities and taught at them, so I have some experience with this. So most of the places I've been to are really small. There's one I've been to that has 6 residents. So, you know, when you put 15%, Bethany is a larger place, but if a smaller place came in, there wouldn't be any opportunity for a smaller place to have somebody to live. So maybe there could be a minimum or 15%. And the other thing is, if you're saying you're allowing the caretaker to live there, is that the caretaker and their partner, spouse, children, are they the whole family unit count towards the 15%?
Well, it's 15% of residences, right? So if there's 100 residences, 15 of them can be up to 15 can be set aside for employees, whether one person lives there or they bunk up with their brother. I don't think that matters.
But that the brother would not be employed.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm presupposing the people living in the, oh, you're saying if their family lives with them.
A lot of people, not everybody, a lot.
And I think you're drilling into nuances that aren't even contemplated by this. I was reading it over here. That's a good question.
Yeah, I don't think, truthfully, I mean, I know Christy and I went through this numerous times. I don't think that was even contemplated, so that's something that we can bring back.
Right. Maybe that's
Right.
included into the 15%.
Or something that would be clarified a little bit
Right.
more, like 15% to employees and their families or something.
Yeah.
And then maybe a maximum
Right.
number of units.
Do you know how they arrived at 5 acres as a minimum? Because right now there's no minimum lot size. Right. And it's going to 5 acres. That just.
Yeah, so I think in terms of the the uses, I mean, to some extent, what's taking place in the Bethany Art Center is like a little bit of a model in terms of the community use that would potentially, you know, be replicated in a couple, you know, in other areas in Austining. But because it's in residential districts, you know, they really wanted to make sure that there is that buffer between the residences and the community arts community centers. And then
Do you recall
also,
how many acres Bethany is?
Yeah, definitely more than
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, five.
But so this means that only certain properties in Austining could potentially become ours.
that's correct.
Do we have any idea how many that is? Or I guess it's not. I'm just curious.
No, we don't. I don't have that off.
No, it's fine.
And again, they would have to, you know, it's a special permit.
Yep.
So they would still have to petition and then have to demonstrate that they would meet the conditions.
We wouldn't want to bump up these numbers too quickly. I mean, it needs to fit in.
Sure.
With the environment of the town.
Of course.
I mean, there's a difference, you know, between the village and the town. And, you know, there's certain characteristics that we want to maintain. So as
Right.
far as increasing the percentages without, you know, having some kind of, you know, cap to it.
Yeah, I wouldn't increase the percentage.
Right.
I would just clarify what that is encapsulating. It's just the employee.
What about just the overall number of units? Is there concern with that, or you're comfortable with the?
Well, the units, so right now it's saying 50% of the units.
It's hard to
The
judge
units
because we
could
don't
have-
want it to come off as an apartment complex and
Right.
within a residential neighborhood.
Right, that's the issue.
Right, no, but I
5
meant,
acres
I
to get
meant,
filled up quickly.
right, and I'm referring to not necessarily the employees, the 15%, but, just even the artists and residents, like if they're concerned with just general.
Well, I'm thinking maybe 15%. If you're not a housing unit, so 15% of the population, what you're taking, because if it's 15% of the housing units, and each of those 15, those units have 6 people, and then, you know, it gets to be a large number. So is there a way to limit it to people? That would be full-time residents.
So limit to the number of people that would be full-time
Right.
residents, period.
That's my suggestion to
I'm just trying to come up with some way of controlling, you know, how it's laid out on the site, whether it's some building coverage requirements or some lot coverage requirements so that we build some buffer in between that use and
Well,
And the
you could,
existing
you could
neighborhood.
create like a density to some extent, based upon, you know, so many housing units or so many, you know, either temporary or full-time housing units per acre. That's an option.
Oh, that sounds good. That sounds good. What do you think?
I mean, I'm fine with considering what I just, without knowing what this really means, like for the practical import of how it exists at Bethany, I don't know if the number is good or not. And maybe can the town give us any more information on like how Bethany fits into these metrics?
it's tough to do that given the difference between 5 acres versus Bethany's 20+ acres.
Right.
Yeah. I had a separate.
Bethany is really, they are really, they're not going to residential. It's narrow and long.
Uh-huh.
So the goal is to prevent a multi-family development rate of, when you consider some kind of unit limitation or density limitation. They can have like only X% or X.
Could they even
Perhaps it
obtain the special permit if, like, I don't know, I didn't drill down, but whatever the requirements are, if someone went ahead and built multifamily housing and said, and here's an art community also, I want to be this, would they even check the box to be able to be an artist community? I don't.
I mean, perhaps the density can't exceed the R40 district that it's going to be likely surrounded by.
Right, I think Well, so let's just put that out and do, so our 40 districts is about, that's really 1 acre. So then if it's 5 acres, then you're talking about no more than 5 artist resident units.
That doesn't, I don't think,
Full-time units.
Right.
Right.
But even part-time units, do you want to?
But given the other uses that,
Right.
that would be taking place at a facility like this, that might be okay.
Okay.
Well, the artist residences are temporary.
Right.
So we don't have any issue with that, because people are there, I'm not sure how long they're not permanent.
We just want them to fit into the neighborhood.
Right, but let's just playing that out though, even if you have part-time, if you consistently have new people coming in, you could theoretically have them be occupied full-time.
Right.
I have a question about some specific text. The second page, Romanet 8, sub 2 under temporary outdoor art related events. So it says no event shall temporary events be permitted to remain past 11 p.m. Okay. No event shall events of more than 25 people be permitted to remain past 9 p.m. That makes sense. The no use of amplified sound after 9 p.m. I feel like that could be pulled to the end and be more clearly. That's a rule that applies to everything, right? No. I think the way it's written is a little confusing. I'm trying to wear my lawyer and planner hat. I think it could be a little. Because what I'm gleaning is, if you have 10 people, you can be outside having an outdoor event until 11. If you have 25 or more, you can only have that many people congregated outside till 9. No matter what, you can't have amplified sound after 9. If that's how I'm reading it, then I think we could maybe make it a little more clear. Because I know noise complaints are always a thing.
Right.
So to make that especially clear.
I think part of this came from, if I'm remembering correctly, that when they have outdoor events and they wanted people leave at 9, and they wanted to be able to be permitted to take down and clean up or whatever, so they allowed people like that to have a window to.
Oh, I don't know the import or the drafting history. I just reading the actual text. I was just trying to make sure.
If I remember.
Ooh. I need to get to Bethany. I've never been.
So that makes sense.
Right, so they recommend clarifying the language.
Yeah, that's it.
Every 9 o'clock goes down.
Just to, and if I'm reading it wrong, that's fine
No,
too.
I
Just
think
one way or the other.
I agree. And then the other recommendation is that you're recommending that there could be clear that there is a unit density max of equaling the underlying density of that subdivision.
At least in that range of the neighborhood that's surrounded.
Right. Well, do we want to say meeting like the neighborhood,
Yes.
the average density of the neighborhood? Because that could theoretically be something like, let's just take River Knoll, for example. That's really good. You have like 3 different residential districts, more or less surrounding that one.
That's actually a perfect example,
Right.
since they always make reference to
Right,
the smallest lots.
Right.
And I'm always making reference to the
So
biggest
that's right.
lots.
So,
So we should probably go with the larger end of the adjoining districts. So if they're abutting R40 in some section of it, that's probably what we should be aiming for.
or do you want to just,
It is R40.
or do you want to
On
just,
one side, on 15, I mean.
right, or do you want to just go with the underlining?
10 units for 5 acres, 1 additional unit after, or something like that.
But then how do you address if it's going to end up being like there's a lot of people in each unit?
Right. Yeah. But you wouldn't be able to address that with the density limitation.
No.
Right.
That would just be specific to say, for 5 acres, minimum you get 7 units, and every acre over you get.
Yeah, I don't think we're being too restrictive, because once you take into account everything else that takes place outside, it's going to fill up quickly. Once you bring in parking into play and the outdoor areas that they're gonna want to come into play. That acreage is gonna go fast.
So why don't we just, so then let's, I think it'll be more clear if we just say the underlying zoning. Right,
Yes.
so if it's R15, they might potentially get slightly more bump, but I think for the most part, you're not going to see it in those residents, because most of your undeveloped 5-acre properties are within, you know, your R40s and some of your larger zones.
Right.
But this one in particular, Sandy, you're saying on one side it's R15, the other side is R40.
The neighborhoods.
Right, the two neighborhoods.
And if that's the
They
case,
are,
and if that's the case, we should probably lean towards the larger zone.
So the properties in 2 zones.
Yes.
But Bethany's not in 2 zones. It's in the-
no, it's just touching 2 different.
So if a property's in 2 zones, go with the higher.
Yes.
So you're not talking about the adjacent neighborhoods.
Yes.
You are. He's talking about the adjacent neighborhoods.
The Valerie's recommending the underlying zone.
So there are some.
So if Bethany's in the, or whatever,
5 acres is probably going to more often than not come into play with multiple zoning districts. I'm guessing. And if that's the case, we go the bigger of the.
The less dense. You say
yes.
bigger, yeah?
Yes.
Less dense.
The R40 versus.
Yes,
the 30.
yes.
All right, so why don't we say that we'll meet the underlying zoning, but if more than one zone property has-
more restricted.
right, more
Yes. Because that's usually the complaint that we get from the neighbors whenever any kind of development takes place.
More dense than what we had.
Exactly.
And you don't want to use this as a pretext to develop multifamily.
No.
Right.
Page 4, Roman at 5 at the top. I think the word property should be properly. I think.
Yeah.
Okay. I swear I'm not nitpicking, I just.
No, this is good because
I catch
somebody
it.
at some point
Well,
will
fresh
say
eyes.
it says property and not properly,
Yeah.
and therefore that allows me to do.
So we're moving on to the calendar.
So I'll submit these comments.
Hold on.
The 2 members of the public that are participating, oh, see, someone raised their hand. So let's promote them. I think they probably want to talk on this issue.
One.
Yes, hi. My name is Casey Brenner with the law firm Zarin and Steinmetz. We represent the Bethany arts community. I believe Jessica Irons, the president of Bethany, is on as well. If you would allow her to unmute, if she's okay with that, we would be happy to, I guess, answer some of your preliminary questions that are Bethany specific, although of course, as Valerie explained, Bethany isn't necessarily the applicant here. We would be applying for this special permit. So of course, we've been monitoring and are interested in this proposed zoning amendment. And I apologize to the extent I may have not been able to hear some of the comments all that well. So I might have misunderstood a few things, but hi, Jessica.
Hi. Hello. Oh no. Hi. So in terms of the 15%, my understanding is that Bethany, 15% of Bethany would be 6,000 square feet. Our intent is not to use that much, but that it
Right.
would be, sorry, my dog is going to talk to you.
Jessica, on the 15% for the permanent housing for potential employees, I think that was intended to be 15% of the total, residences. So do you know how many total units for the residency program there are, and how many in practice employees that are working at Bethany right now may
Sorry,
use
hold on.
these?
1 second. Let me get my kids to take my dog.
We're sorry, and we know this isn't technically a public hearing on this issue. I just thought we would chime in if you would allow us to the extent Jessica can help, facilitate any of this. Or we would be happy to follow up in writing to assist the planning board as well as the town board clarifying your question. Just let us know.
I am pretty sure that we have 10, we're allowed to use, I think it's 10 residencies, like dorm rooms at a time. I think there are 4 apartments, and like, if I'm counting in my head, I think it is 18 dorm rooms, but we never use all of them at the same time right now. And go ahead.
Oh, no. So just however many rooms or apartments or units that you normally use for your artist in residency program, which is temporary, I think in this law, it would be up to a year. 15% of that total number would be permitted potentially under how it's currently drafted for employees to permanently reside on the property.
Correct.
So do you know what Bethany currently, their current employees that would potentially use these?
Current employees who would live there permanently?
Right, and again, that's not in place yet, so
right.
I don't know.
So we don't have current employees who would live there permanently. We would hire a permanent maintenance person. It might be a couple who shared an apartment who would operate as a, handyman, cleaning person, somebody who does the dishes during our residency. I know that's something that we would love to have.
Right.
That would be great.
Okay. Yeah, if there are any Bethany specific questions on that, right, right now, we would be happy to try to answer them or follow up. If you don't mind, I couldn't hear the entire discussion about the potential density cap.
Yeah.
Can you just explain a little bit how that might work, Valerie? Using the underlying zoning, sorry.
Yeah, so I think based on what they just stated, then what you're saying would work. So that the underlying zoning density would, if in effect, be the number of units that could be housed on site. And so they have 24 acres, and they just said that they have about 20 to 22 units, and that's and they're 40,000 square feet. They're right, there are 40, so they're
2 more units and 15% of those.
Wow, everything on that, it works.
Right. So that would work. So that's really what it is. That the number, it's both temporary and permanent, would be controlled by the underlying density of that zoning district.
Okay, so in our case, it would be the R40. I don't know that density calculation offhand. I think you just said it, but okay, we'll.
Can you hear me? It's 40,000 square feet.
Okay, sorry, I did not hear that the first time. Yeah, and if there are anything else, Jessica can try to clarify in the meantime. Otherwise, I will let you all get back to it.
Thank you very much for your input.
Thank you. And just to clarify, are you prepared to issue a recommendation to the town board, or does it require further planning board review?
No, I think, right. I think we're going to issue a recommendation based upon our discussion tonight.
Okay, great. Thank you all very much. Take care.
Changing it in the future, if we find it to be
I'll just
inadequate
be
in some way.
devil's advocate because it works out here, but that's what I do. Right, so my understanding is if something's in R40, if I own 1 acre, I can build a single family residence.
Yeah.
That can have within it 10 bedrooms if I meet all my other requirements. We're talking about dwelling units, so I don't know what the dwellings are like there, but if it's one structure, that's like a dorm with 20 units, right? That's different than in reality what you might build on 1 acre that's allowed to build a single family home. It just has to be clear that what a unit is, because I also wouldn't want someone who has 20 acres and says, I'm a philanthropic, let's develop in our community. And then they're like, and I built this little dorm because you guys set a 20 unit cap for my 20 acres and each room is 200 square feet. And it's like, well, you probably could have built more, but the way the text of the local law is, so I don't know how we can define unit to like make sure it kind of works for everyone, but do you kind of see what maybe I'm not making any sense. Like, I just think of a single
No,
family
you're taking
home.
into account population density and ultimately create.
Yeah, because in reality, somebody building a single family home might have more than one person live in that one dwelling unit, which is a house with smaller, sub-units, bedrooms in it. So however we want, I think it's dwelling. Yeah, housing unit, and it's not capitalized, so I don't know if that's a defined term or not. I just think clarity on that could be good, just so we don't run into that issue later.
Yeah, we could also put a bedroom unit on what we
Sure.
define as the housing unit.
Yeah, one house.
Housing unit with 1 bedroom or no more than 2 bedrooms. or
Sure, yeah, whatever a
some percentage.
standard bedroom would be for one single family home on a 1 acre lot, 3 bedrooms, whatever it is, then you have a cap.
Because I don't think we want bedroom housing units, right?
Right,
That's
so
not
why
the-
don't,
not
do
the
we want
goal.
to do like no more than 2 bedrooms?
Well, it seems like it should be
Well, or
one, I think it should be.
whatever a housing unit is.
Yeah. think
I don't know what a housing unit is.
Well, I mean, I think, and I'll have to check the zoning code, but a lot of times, and I don't know, my internet's not working very well on this computer tonight, but usually it refers to like a dwelling unit, which is one single family, however that gets, it doesn't necessarily define bedrooms or density. It
Yeah,
just refers to like a family.
But in this case, it's an artist community.
Right.
And the dwelling units are 1 bedrooms in artist communities.
Right, but if we start tying it, then we're gonna have to tie it to bedrooms instead of densities, right? And then I think that just gets a little bit more complicated as opposed to, because let's say if they do have like the super on site and the super doesn't have some family members, right? Are we gonna say then everyone has to live in 1 bedroom? Or,
yeah, I don't have any particular stance, I just think clarity would be helpful.
right, exactly.
But I think
What
the
did you
goal
say?
of an artist community
They would
is
have to
to want
have
better
Yeah.
as many artists, right? So maybe some percentage, maybe 15% that we're saying could be for employees, could be two
Right,
bedrooms.
Right, so maybe that's.
Everything else should be one
Maybe that would
bedroom.
be good. Yeah.
So
I
I,
should clarify that one of the artist residences I went with was ADA compliant, so there were 2 bedrooms for each dwelling unit. For the ADA.
Mhm.
right, so I mean, I think, I don't know if we wanna be that restricted, so maybe it's just simple as the underlining zoning. And then let somebody come back with an argument that they have like 20 acres and they wanna do 40 for artist residents. But I think, but then you're still gonna have to deal with potentially parking for 40 people.
No,
and
it's a good
right.
point, yeah, so maybe leave it as is,
So
but
maybe
we're now aware of
50%.
this.
So 50% 1 bedroom, 50% 2 bedroom. There's gotta be some limit, otherwise it's gonna be 4 bedroom
I feel.
housing units, right?
Right, I think 2 would be.
So you limit the housing unit to the density, so R40, they could have, if there's 24 acres,
One
24
housing
units.
unit, yeah, 24
And one-
housing units and a
12,
housing unit.
12 1 bedroom, 12 2 bedrooms,
Sure.
a maximum of.
Mhm.
If they want to do less 1 bedroom, that's fine too.
I mean, they always have the option of, getting a variance or.
Sure.
Or we have the option of changing it in the future if we think it's a little bit too strict.
Right.
But my biggest concern would be that this thing fits in, in a residential neighborhood.
Right. Right, so I'll draft a memo. I will send it, circulate it to the planning board just to make sure everyone's comfortable with it, and then they'll go to the town board. I know the town board is looking to try to close this public hearing as soon as possible, so I'll try to get something out to you, you know, this week, and then maybe we'll be able to do something.
Great.
Cool.
Their meetings on Tuesday.
Yeah, the meeting's on Tuesday, so I'll let them know that hopefully this comment, and then Christie can decide, if that, you know, substantive change. I think. But I do think these are really good comments.
not in the final.
Right.
What's next? The planning board meeting calendar,
Yeah.
which is too far off in the future for me to
Looks good.
think about it, so I'm perfectly fine with
So
it.
Sandy and I went to propose a
Well,
slight
with an
change.
optional second, that's
Yeah.
needed. That works.
Except I think Jason wants it every week.
Sure. Yay.
Right around that time.
Perfect,
I'm
yeah.
sorry, but I think you're gonna be outvoted.
I think this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel applicants rush, you know.
Yeah.
That's what we're
agenda,
finding.
Yeah,
and they're not
yeah.
really ready, and then we're rushed, so
Yeah.
it's just making it, you know, like this, and have the option.
And it still gives us, it still gives us the option to have a second meeting.
Right, right.
Because everybody's like, oh, I'll be ready, and they're never ready.
Right.
And then we just waste time.
And I think with their, I think a lot of times the applicants in the room and they're people they hired are in the room, everyone's saying yes, they can be ready, but they're not really
course,
ready.
yep.
And so, I mean, even just like, for example, 83 Somerstown Road, because it was the 2-week cycle, they would rush in, and of course, if they didn't meet the deadline, it came, you know, but it would be perfectly on time
Mhm.
for the next meeting, which is what they're basically gonna
Yeah,
get
this
there.
looks good.
So,
And we'll have a recession next year.
Yeah, it won't be much.
That won't be good for business here.
So I think that's a go ahead.
Okay.
All right, meeting minutes. You guys had a chance to look.
Yeah, I'll vote on the ones that I was here for.
That sounds reasonable.
That's reasonable. Right, I'll make a motion to adopt the meeting minutes of September 7th, 2022.
I second that.
I vote in favor of adoption.
So do I.
Unanimous.
So there's now, Jason wasn't,
I was not here for the
so we won't be
21st.
able to vote.
I guess I probably shouldn't. I mean, I read them, they look good, but I don't know that I'm allowed to vote on
I mean,
them.
you are allowed to vote on it, if you read it, it looks good. The practice usually of this court is that, like, actually be at the meeting, but there's nothing that,
Can they have a quorum of 2?
no.
And vote, so we can. Here we go. I'll make a motion to adopt the September 21, 2022 meeting minutes.
I second that.
I vote yes.
I vote yes.
Unanimous.
As long as you read them.
Yeah.
Okay, is there anything else we need to talk about? Good night, everyone.
All right.
Oh,
Do we need to do that?
What? You make a motion to end the meeting?
Yeah.
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting of October 19th, 2022.
I second it.
I vote yes.
I vote yes.
Unanimous again.